Feel good about that, picking up that 11th Knoxville Nationals.
Yeah, it's been it's a great finish in week after the last couple seasons the way they've gone. So it feels good to be back in contention for in the bigger races. We had a decent run at the Kings Royal and ended up second, and the Knoxville's ultimately the one everyone wants to win, including us. And we ran second to Kyle last year, so it was a little bit of reprieve for being able to get the job done here.
Yeah, Donnie, in the last, I don't know, I would say month and a half, 2 months, we've seen a lot of speed out of your car. What can you contribute that to? Because it sure seems like you found something.
The engine development program, obviously everything revolves around the way the engines run. And, when you're out on the island by yourself and you're trying to work through things single-handedly, sometimes it takes you a little bit longer than what you expect or what you really want. But, there's a lot of factors that come into it. The time of the year, obviously, when we start out in Florida, the air is a different quality than it is in the summer. And when it gets hot in the summer, the air is not as good. So, horsepower is more key because you're down on power quite a bit. And that's one thing that we have an abundance of is horsepower. So, the guys have done a phenomenal job, led by Steve Swenson, Scuba, everybody knows him as.
Right.
They're diligently having communication calls every Monday and Tuesday with the Ford engineers and Ron Shaver and myself, trying to make sure we keep the communication where we got a direction and we know the path that we just came down. And we've maybe lacked that a little bit the last couple of years, but at least we got a good handle on it the last couple months. And guys are just doing a phenomenal job at reacting to what new products we get and what new combinations we get in the motor department.
Right. I want to talk to you about your technique on the way that you approach the gas pedal in your car. You have a different kind of technique. Talk about that and how coming into figuring out how to drive this car with all this horsepower. I want to talk about how you operate your foot on the gas pedal a little bit. Can you share that with us a little bit?
Well, it's not about how your foot is on the gas pedal. It's about how you keep the tires caught up. You can't have the tires just frying all the time and spinning without having some sort of, having them connected to something. And it's not just the rear tires. They got to work in conjunction with the fronts as well, which don't drive. So,
right.
The way that I was taught to race back in the day is, it was put to me pretty simple, man. All the big races are in the summer. What happens in the summer? The tracks get slicker and they get slower.
Right.
And you got to keep your tires on the car, and that's when the money's on the line. And, it forced us real hard to work on those type of techniques and how to keep the tires caught up. And, you can fine-tune one thing, which we did for years, and we had a good program, but when you change it and you do something different that has a totally different power curve, it's not as simple as just saying, well, we'll make the power curve like what we had. You can't, because that's like comparing the taste of apples and oranges. It's just two completely different machines, two different beasts. And that's something that everyone at Ford and everyone at TSR has tried real hard because they know I like to be able to have total control of the motor instantaneously all the time. And that's something we've lacked is when I do lift on the gas, the motor doesn't slow down with my foot, which is probably more important than the motor, going down with your foot and accelerating. So there's just two things that we've worked extremely hard on. Not me personally. I can give the feedback, and then Scuba and Ron Shaver and everybody that's involved with the whole program is worked on that, diligently to try to make sure that I have the motor connected to my foot. And, a lot of guys don't do it that way, and it works for them. But obviously it's the way I am, and they realize when they get it right that we're in a position where we're a contender to win a lot of races.
Right. You fell back to sixth at one point during the first half. I think you talked about the wheel spin a little bit too much in the first half of that race. But you came in and Scoob, he kind of You said you didn't say anything to him, and that's a signal to him that you're not happy. Talk about that at the halfway break and what you guys did there a little bit.
Well, we had changed some stuff up in the fuel system, the nozzles, to try to get the motor to drive a little bit better, but it actually didn't make it drive better. It made it so the track was speeded up when we started, and we detuned and got rid of a bunch of horsepower. And, you know, it wasn't something that was, even though nozzles are simple, they're not simple on an open red.
Right.
That's too much to change. So we basically were, you know, had the motor run out too hard to where it wouldn't keep up when we were running around the top at the beginning of the race. And guys were even driving by on the bottom. And, you know, it was a bit frustrating, but the dynamic of that race changes so much over the course of 50 laps. And, you know, when we stopped, when you're back in sixth and you started third, you know, you don't really feel like you have the world's best chance at it. But, you know, he knew we needed to make some adjustments to the car. We changed some shocks. We changed some weight. We did a lot of things that we had already had pre-planned because the racetrack was pretty speeded up when we started. But, you know, it was just, that's how we race. I mean, he knows when I don't say nothing that we need to take a big swing at it. And he took a big swing at it, and it worked. So, you know, after we got about 10 or 12 laps into the last segment there, the last 25 laps of the race, you know, the track kind of came to us, really, is what happened. The car didn't go to the track. The track came where it slowed down. It was really hard to hit the bottom, but yet it was too far around the top and too thin for us to be able to run it. So we stayed committed to that bottom line and somehow made it work. And we just got David at the right time and made sure we didn't show a nose to where he didn't have the opportunity to move and move around the racetrack. And at that point, you know, it was just try to make good laps to the end, and that's what we did.